want to talk a little bit about my family and how we ended up being in public service roles in the community. And it kind of happened with my father. It happened naturally. My father was our role model, and he started off as a social worker, teacher, community council president, and then he ran for office and became a state representative. But one thing that a lot of people don't know about my father was never ashamed to tell about his story and how he came to be who he was, is that he dropped out of high school at one point, and he was working jobs because the family didn't have a lot of money. So what he did is he worked these jobs, and he ran into one of his old teachers. And his teacher asked him what he was doing with his life, and he said he was just working. And she encouraged him to go back to school and said it's very important that you get an education because you can go further and no one can take that education from you once you got it. So he went back to school, he graduated, and then he got a scholarship to go to Central State University, HBCU, here in Ohio. And when he went to Central State, he said all he had was one suit, a pair of pants and a shirt, and a suitcase. And he had to work in the kitchen and paint and do things like that to try to pay his tuition with the part that he had to do. And he graduated with honors. And as he got out of school, he became a teacher, a social worker. He had a bunch of different jobs, but his favorite was helping people and uplifting people and trying to make a difference. He became a community council president, and he knew how to work through the process and to get people results for what they needed done in their lives, to try to better their lives. And I have siblings, and many of us, we would see the things he do in the community, and of course, naturally, his example was rubbing off on us, and we didn't want to get in politics. And my father's life was all about being a public servant. He'd like to serve people, and we didn't want to go to politics. And those were our famous last words, because every last one of my brothers, we were all involved in politics in one form or fashion. I ran for office, and back in '95, I ran for city council in the city of Forest Park, and I became vice mayor. I managed my brother Mark's campaign. He ran for state representative. I was his campaign manager, and he got elected, became a state senator after that, and then became the city mayor, the mayor of Cincinnati. But my first brother who ran for office, he didn't win his first race. He ran for city council, and he did not win. So we didn't like losing, not so much that we didn't know what everything was about, but we didn't like losing. So we all got together and we began to learn the process of how to connect with people, how to be more relational, not transactional, and to find out what people's needs were and what policies could impact their lives. So after we went through that process of losing a race, I managed my brother's campaign. He won, then I won, and another one of my brothers ran for judge. He won, and the brother who lost council, he ended up becoming a judge prior to my other brother. And then I had another brother who became a state representative, and I got Dwayne, William, Dale, Mark, and Joe. So we were all involved in politics, but my sister's the oldest, and she didn't want anything to do with politics. So she had more sense than we did. She didn't run for office and didn't like to be in the public eye. She would just help behind the scenes. But all of us, we saw what the power of being involved and being at the table, we saw what the power could do for people, and how it could really make a difference. And one person could make a difference advocating on behalf of others. So education is the equalizer. Staying in school and getting through that process, getting good grades, and going on to the next level. And if you're not interested in going to college, there are trade schools that a lot of people can get a trade, and they can learn some craft, and many start their own businesses. And college is not the only way. But I'm just saying, the education is the great equalizer. And one thing I want to say before I end is something that my father, left with us, and is a quote that he said his whole life. And he really meant what he said when he wanted to make a difference and to help people, because he was truly a public servant. And he says, "I shall pass this way but once. Any good that I can do or any kindness I can show to any human being, let me do it now. Let me not defer nor neglect it, for I shall pass this way but once." So, and he did everything that he set out to do, and he had a lot of achievements, and there's so many. He passed 600 pieces of legislation, sponsored or co-sponsored over 600 pieces of legislation. He's a majority leader of the Ohio House of Representatives for over 20 years, the longest serving majority leader in history of Ohio, and he was the highest ranking black elected official at that time in the state of Ohio. And he did a lot for the community and for Hamilton County, not just for his district, but he did a lot for the community and for a lot of people in this community. So I just want everyone to understand that, you can do anything you want to do. You can be anything you want to be, but you have to stick to it. You have to get your education. You have to set goals, and you have to make a plan. Write it down. Write it down. Because if you don't write it down, it can just linger, but you write it down, you give it life. And then you start putting some action behind it. And then when you execute, then you're on your way. Thank you.